try and lose who I am and lose any ideas I have about the person and just paint or draw what I see.
Yeah.
And often it's not what I think they're about. So I usually learn more about the person just by painting them than I would ever know from having a conversation with them.
Now that one right there in the middle.
Oh yeah.
That's your self-portrait.
It
Self-portrait in transit.
That's right.
With a tremendous pun on that phrase. Can we move in on that one? There you go. I knew there was something subversive about this one. Hello and welcome. We're in an art gallery, the Lipont Art Gallery in Richmond, and we are looking at paintings by Sally Clark. My name is Sherrill Grace, and I'm here to talk to Sally about her work. The exhibition is called Play, a Retro-Speculative. We'll get to that title in a second, but I'd like to say a little bit about Sally first, for those of you who don't know her. Sally is an award-winning playwright, painter, novelist, born and raised here in Vancouver, but who also spent several decades living in Toronto, beginning in the 70s, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Among her most powerful plays are Life Without Instruction, which premiered at Theatre Plus Toronto in 1991, Moo, that's right, Moo, which premiered at Alberta Theatre Projects in Calgary in 1988, and is included in Jerry Wasserman's second volume of modern Canadian plays. And another one is The Trial of Judith Kay, Clark's adaptation of Franz Kafka's novel, The Trial, which received a 1989 production at Toronto's Canadian Stage Company. But it is Life Without Instruction that came instantly to my mind, Sally, when I first visited the gallery at its opening of your exhibition, because this play, Life Without Instruction, is an exploration, a reinvention of the actual story of the late Renaissance Italian woman painter Artemisia Gentileschi and the biblical story of Judith and Holofernes. This play, then, a painter, playwright's creation of a play about painting and about paintings that mirror a painter's life, seems to me to have something to say with what you've done in so many of the works in this exhibition that we've been touring today. I want to ask you about this connection, about theater and art, and about the title that you've chosen for this show. But first I'd like to turn to Tony Chang, who curated the show, and ask Tony if she can tell us a little bit about why she chose these particular paintings for the exhibition, with Sally, of course, but you had a lot of decision making, and then why you hung it the way you did, Tony, because it struck me the first time and now coming again that the way you've curated the show is very dramatic, very theatrical, and the painting behind us, the self-portrait in transit, is the one that the visitor to the gallery sees the minute they come in, and it is addressing them. Can you comment a little on this?
Yes, we have known Sally for a few years, and then we already did one other solo show of her, which is totally a different series of works, and we were blown away by her talent back then. So Sally was updating us of her new works, and so we went to her studio, and Sally showed us some of her old and new works, including this series. So we were once again taken aback by the power of this series, by the color, by the theme, and of course by her talent and her boldness when she was very young to accomplish such a beautiful series of works. And they have been around for like 15 years. They were done in the 70s, so we really have to show this in our gallery to the visitors. So we kind of curated the show with that, with Sally on set here. So and we have another gallery space downstairs, which is a white box. It's an industrial feeling white box. But Sally's painting is kind of retro-speculative.
Well, we're gonna get to that.
Vintage. So this room upstairs is a lounge style room, and it has this fireplace, and we painted the wall black. So we immediately thought Sally's series of work might fit this room, or this room might work better for her painting than the gallery downstairs. So we tried it out, and it worked pretty well. So all audiences were all saying that this series of work looks much better here than downstairs. So regarding how to place the works, we worked it out with Sally on site. We worked it out with my coworkers and Sally.
But you said
that
had to be there.
This painting has to be here.
That was the one thing you
I was going to draw a floor plan and place all the works on that floor plan. The very first one I was thinking of is this spectacular work. Yeah. So I thought this work does not really belong to any of other paintings or any groups in the room, and then this is the most prominent spot in the whole room, and then it's different, it's shocking, and it's kind of a prophecy, like your hand is holding, your hand is telling you something. the hand is the highlight of this entire painting. Is telling us, or is waving to us, telling us something.
It's a warning.
It's more like a warning.
So when you were just talking to Sally said this was in the elevator in Chicago, in the tower, in a very tall tower. I went to school in Chicago. So I know what you mean. I have been in those historic buildings, and they can be eerie sometimes. And then so one other twist in this painting is that when you're in an elevator, you're traveling vertically.
Yeah.
But the title of this painting is the self-portrait in transit. So it's also a train car, like a transit train car.
That's right.
So you are traveling straight forward.
Right.
So you're not traveling
transition.
So the subject, the lady in this painting, actually is converging at one point. At different directions, traveling in different directions. So it's actually, the more you look at this painting, the more you realize what's in there.
Yes.
And I really admire your courage or your talent to paint that painting, put yourself in that painting. It's a very different work. Splendid piece. It's a splendid piece. Yes.
Thank you, Tom. Well, there's a lot that goes into the art of curating something well, and I think this has got a real wow factor, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's still one last question for you, please. I would like you to unpack the title, Play, a Retro-Speculative. Please.
Okay. Well, we wanted to think of titles for the play, so for the show, and it was playful. Like, I was remembering back to the 70s when I was doing these paintings, and there was a sense of play about what I did with the models, because they were friends of mine, and we had no idea when they came in what we were going to do. Like, I didn't have wallpaper chosen or anything chosen. I had a chair, and that was it. And so they would sit, and I would do drawings for a couple of sessions, and then I'd say, well, what do you want to do? And it was kind of like it was like playing. It was the two of us decided to create this thing.
That's interesting.
The scene, not the painting per se. And then after a while, I would get an idea of what sort of wallpaper to use, just on the basis of their hand, the shape of their body, whether they were long and slender, or their anxiety, like the superintendent with the boxes, or the elegance with Paul Pettiford. And so I would create this environment for them, having figured out what sort of environment they belonged in. Then I would create the environment, and then paint it as if their entire house was like that. they were living
You
in their
went to
environment.
choose wallpaper in different places too, and it was all retro wallpaper.
Well, it was just one place, and the retro wallpaper was really cheap because nobody wanted it. It was very expensive. One time it was expensive French design wallpaper from the 60s, but nobody wanted that wallpaper on their walls. So I went to the odd bins and pulled out stuff. Yeah.
And speculative?
Well, speculative, because if it was retrospective, that would imply that I was a well-known painter with a retrospective, a
you
work
should
that
be.
people would know about, right? That's what retrospectives are usually for. So I had retrospeculative because I felt, because this was kind of 1970s, and at the time I was painting them, I didn't realize I was doing a portrait of the 1970s, right? I wasn't aware that I was painting that zeitgeist.
Yeah.
It just, I guess I was living in it so much and just playing around with it. So speculative too, in terms of who else could these people have been? Like, who are they really? That was my other idea behind it, was that people present an image to other people, to the world, but inside there's something quite different. And so my plan with these paintings was to get their inside and present it. So the mind, was not a practicing mime. He was an actor who always wanted to be a mime. So it was almost like people's secret inner lives I tried to present.
Yeah. And the woman with a gun, which we...
Same thing, she was a Buddhist. So of course she was not into guns.
And of course, as Tony pointed out so well, the layers and the ambiguities and the complexities in your self-portrait make a viewer speculate about what's going on in the painting.
Yeah,
what's your backstory?
That's also part of it too. Yeah. But I also wanted, I put play, well, because I was a playwright, but I put play because I like the idea that the whole approach should be playful. Like it's
well, serious play. Serious play. Listen, this is wonderful. This is a fantastic show, and it's beautifully curated, and the paintings are marvelous, and the way you go from people to landscapes, and there's so much complexity in your technique, which you told us a little bit about, but also in your choice of subject matter. And it's just been an absolute delight to get to know this side of you, because I know you as a playwright. And I just will end by asking you, do you have other shows coming up that I can go and see at some point?
Well, I do have a show of, Tony had given me a show of the goddesses.
Yes.
And she had said, why don't you should paint some of men as well.
Yes.
So I did some gods. I'm calling it the Divine Insider. There is going to be a show of my work at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre.
Wonderful.
In October and November, till Christmas, I think.
Okay, so later in 2024.
And it'll be, both men and women, giant close-up faces.
Wonderful.
And I should say I'm really grateful that Tony loved these paintings, because they had been buried for many, many years, and she saw them and encouraged me to go and get them stretched and framed, and it's really been
Bravo.
been a real boon for me as well. Thank you.
Oh my, Sally, this whole show is amazing. This piece, Mime, is it called? What's the title?
It's called Mime and Digital Clouds.
Mime and Digital Clouds. Now, I know you as a playwright, and this seems to me to have been inspired in some way by theater or by performance. Is that right?
Well, actually, my friend was an actor, so yes, and so he sat for the painting. The digital clouds, like they were, I used to call, at that time they were known as computer clouds, and it was this wallpaper that had that sort of depiction, and there was something about how mechanized the clouds were compared to how lively he is that really grabbed me, and so that was my inspiration for the painting.
It's a very fine painting and great hands. But listen, can I ask you a trade question now, a secret? How do you get this rich black? Because it's black, but
Yeah, well, there actually isn't any black in this black. I created it. It's a Flemish painting technique, and so if the one way of saying, if you were making a blue sky, you would paint a pale yellow at the very base color, and it would be kind of it would be dry in that sense. It would be just a fairly medium sort of dry coat of pale yellow, and then you would glaze over that pale yellow in blues, and that actually gives this vibrancy to the sky. So what I did with my black is I chose a base coat, and then I glazed over it in layers of alternating colors. Because what happens with most paintings, the way we're taught today is we just paint straight on. So if you want to do blue, you go blue, and then you do it again. And the more you build up just one blue on another blue,
There's no layering.
and it sinks in. The paint sinks into the canvas and dies. So the colors die. And this is what the Flemish painters knew. They knew how to keep the color alive.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, there's depth to it. There's movement on them.
Yeah, that's like, because your eye is making the black. There's no actual black in the painting, but the eye makes it black.
Fascinating. A wonderful piece. And then there's this one. I must say, I just love this one. This one is called Woman with a Gun, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And it's so, I'm seeing things that when I first came to your exhibition, I didn't notice, like the shadow of her hat and of her body. But there you put all these beautiful, not blacks again. And she's so elegant and she's so relaxed, but oops. She's not only got a gun, but she's got her finger on the trigger. Whoa, what's going on here?
Well, a lot of the portraits that I did, because they happened over a series of sittings, probably about 10 sittings in total. So initially I'd start with drawings, and then they would suggest the costume. So she had the dress, and I had the hat, and
Who had the gun?
then my boyfriend actually had the gun. But I was also interested in theater at that time, and I thought, I want to paint Hedda Gabler.
Oh, it is Hedda Gabler.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, is this Hedda Gabler by any chance?
It is, but there's something about her expression that makes her look like Annie got a gun, right?
A little bit,
She looks kind of Wild West.
Yeah, so...
And I use theatrical lighting. I would light from below and the side, which is what they used to do in Moulin Rouge lighting. So that's why the shadows are a little unusual compared to the way a direct shadow would be.
Yeah, no, it's a really super painting. It's a really super painting. I sent an image of it to my sister, who's in theater in Edmonton, and that's the one she immediately said, gotta have that one. It's a gorgeous piece. It's a gorgeous piece. Anyway, let's keep going, because there's, oh wow, look over here. Now that one right there in the middle.
Oh yeah.
That's your self-portrait. Self-portrait in transit.
That's right.
With a tremendous pun on that phrase. Can we move in on that one?
Sure.
Oh my goodness, it's so powerful. Okay. This one is simply amazing. And I love the way Tony, and we'll talk to her later, has positioned it as you come into the room. But I have a question. Why, if it's a self-portrait of Sally Clark, the painter, is she holding a camera?
Right. Well, I'm kind of playing with the whole difference between the way painters used to be and the way they are now. So most painters, the camera is their pencil in a sense. So I was kind of making it up the time period, up my time period. So that's why I'm holding a camera, because most painters do that now. They don't draw from life as all. I mean, some of them do, but it's not as common.
But they'll draw or they'll paint from a
photograph, yeah.
And you're capturing us as we come into this room. So, oh boy. And where are you? You're saying in transit, and of course that is got several meanings.
Well, I was at a conference, and it was in Chicago, and they had like 40 floors for the hotel, and it was such a strange elevator. It was just filled with mirrors and all these pale green lights, And it was so eerie that I wrote in it and then ran to my room and grabbed my camera and thought, I have to document this weirdness because it just felt like I was on a spaceship or something. It just had this eerie quality. So I put on this coat that looked a bit like an artist's smock, and I added a scarf for color, and then just took a bunch of photographs of it.
And the hands. I mean, those hands remind me of some of the German painters, expressionists, and the power, they focus on hands so much in those paintings. And
I love hands, and I think, I have a feeling that when I got home, I think I added my own hand, and just because I remember being in front of the mirror drawing it like that. I don't think I had photographed the hand. I think my hand was down when I was taking the pictures.
Yes. Well, it's an amazing piece. Do you like it? Is it one of your favorites?
Well, I really tried to. No, actually,
it's hard to choose a favorite. Yeah.
It was a difficult year that I had, so but it was fun to do. I just never imagined people would like it. Actually, I guess that's odd. You do a self-portrait and I don't think that people are going to love it or want it. So I'm actually
somebody did because it sold, and it's a very, very, very strong, powerful statement.
I meant it as a
about
statement.
You being in transit, but in transit emotionally, psychologically, physically.
And then we all are essentially just rocketing through life.
Yeah. Well done. Congratulations, madam.
Thank you.
And what about this one? This one is called, hang on a second. It's The Incomparable Paul Pettiford. Yeah. And the handling of the fabric is what strikes me in this, that red. Again, the hands are stunning. But how do you get that sense of tremendous richness of texture? Is this again a Flemish?
Yeah, well, I looked up Flemish painting and I looked up Rembrandt and Rubens painting, so that I combined the techniques, but this would be a Flemish one where they always put a base tone of yellow underneath, and then you would glaze the reds over. Yeah. So it's going with the yellow. There's this sort of throbbing of yellow.
It sure is. I mean, it's just whoa. Yeah.
And then you glaze over later in darker tones of purple or alizarin crimson.
And then again, we've got a shadow on that rather.
I think
Rossetti-ish.
And
wallpaper.
Paul was he was with the Alvin Ailey Dance Company, and he moved back to Toronto. I think he was born in Toronto. He worked at the art school where I worked.
Okay.
And he was just this incredible dance teacher. He taught African dance, art of the striptease. He really crossed boundaries in terms of what he taught. None of that was being offered in Stade, Toronto in the 1970s. So. And he was just an amazing person, and he also crossed the boundary. He was the first transsexual I met. He was transitioning to be a woman when I was painting this. The school closed shortly after, so I didn't find out what happened to him later. But I just assumed he went on teaching. But yeah, he was just such a beautiful man too. He looked,
lovely face. I like the dogs as well.
Yeah, he only had one, but I made two.
You made two. Which one was the one he had with him?
I can't remember. The one kept moving around so often. I decided to just put two of them in there.
Okay. Well, they're well done. They're well behaved, and they're paying attention. Beautiful. Okay, let's move on. And then the next one we go to is on that other wall. So can we walk over there?
Yeah, sure.
And this one is called The Super.
The Super, yeah.
Superintendent, and. Poor guy. He's so, compared to your self-portrait, or Paul, the portrait of Paul, the emotion here is very, very different, and I feel more pulled in, almost empathetically, to this person, whereas there I'm being confronted, in your self-portrait I'm confronted. I love that. And can you talk a little bit about what you were intending here as the creator of this?
Well, he was the superintendent of the school where I worked in. It was called the Three Schools, and they rented out apartments, and he was in charge of everything. His father was in charge as well, but he was kind of handed the job. And Yeah, he always was worried and always kind of, and he did offer to sit for a painting for me. And when I saw that blocky type of wallpaper, I thought it was kind of perfect for him.
That was the real wallpaper.
Quality.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I would buy this wallpaper and then set it up as a background behind
Oh,
the
that's what
the
you
subjects.
did.
Yeah.
With all of these ones with these wonderful wallpapers?
Yeah, there was this wallpaper store and I would just find bizarre wallpaper that would match that sitter.
Setting the stage. Setting the stage,
Yeah,
Sally.
pretty-
Yeah,
yeah,
setting the stage.
And yeah,
Was he
his
on?
face is so expressive, right?
Oh,
It's just,
yeah. And he looks worried. He looks like he's got the burdens of the world on
Yeah,
his shoulders.
he did.
And he looks
The art school
tired.
was always going to close at any
Yeah.
moment, and he was always going to have to fix things.
Yeah.
And it was huge. It was a big, huge property to look after. It was a very, very kind person.
Yeah, no, he looks kind. As I say, there's an empathy you've created. It's a very different feeling here from these others that we've stopped at.
I try to. Well, I really try to. When I'm painting someone, I really try and lose who I am and lose any ideas I have about the person, and just paint or draw what I see.
Yeah.
And often it's not what I think they're about. So I usually learn more about the person just by painting them than I would ever know from having a conversation with them. I could talk to them for 3 hours, and yet if I drew them for half an hour, I would learn more about them than a long conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting?
It's like you just take your consciousness and you put it elsewhere. So I would paint and go into not a trance per se, but I would put my consciousness into him and then paint what he wants, what his expression is.
That must be a rare gift, and it must be tiring. Are you tired after you've made a painting?
No, I love it. It's great. I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay. And then, I don't know, all these people, and then we get this, which is just a delightful piece. It's called Vancouver View, and you are a Vancouver girl, born and bred, and it's just a delightful little painting. How do you make that transition from super and self-portrait and lady with a gun, woman with a gun, to the landscapes?
I kind of need to, because there's something very intense about painting people.
Oh yes, that's right.
It's true. Maybe the landscape isn't so intense for me. And this was the view from my parents' house.
I see.
They had this beautiful big room that was full of windows and on all three sides, and I'd look out and just look at the tops of the houses. And this was my favorite view. So I just did it in around the 80s, 85 or 86, and I just wanted to. I didn't know Vancouver was going to be developed, right? But I wanted to capture it while it was still there.
The detail, I mean, there's wonderful detail of these tree branches.
Yeah.
And just little details, the windows. And what's going on here?
Oh, there was snow on the roof, I think.
Yeah, because it's a winter scene, yeah. And the chimneys. Are those houses now destroyed, torn down?
I think so, yeah.
But it's an amazing transition. So this is a delightful, delightful piece. It's called Drinks Before Dinner. Which, yes, drinks before dinner. But if you'll forgive me for a moment, you know what it reminds? I know your comments, but it reminds me of Maxwell Bates's piece. It's a great BC painter, and that you're kind of riffing on him in a way, and some of the faces, but particularly the woman who is looking right at us with a look that is very knowing, very appraising of the viewer. It's a really interesting face. Okay, that's my reaction to this piece, and you tell us what you were doing here.
Well, it's part of a series that I haven't done a lot of these ones. I called it my subversive series.
There you go. I knew there was something subversive about this one.
So I have all these family Polaroids, and they inspire. Some of them really inspire me because I look at them and I see a whole other thing happening other than what the Polaroid suggests. So and I'm of two minds as to whether to just work solely on photographs like that. But I don't. I've changed all sorts of things when I'm doing them. But yeah, there's something about the Polaroids that they're supposedly candid, but yet they're not.
Oh, yeah.
And just the relationships between the people. I love poses that people take unintentionally.
Yeah.
So just the way this man in the middle is, I was kind of bullying this man, who's my dad, actually.
Uh-huh.
And that's my grandmother,
Uh-huh.
his mother. But he's almost like bullying the whole thing, right? It's almost like he's taken over the entire conversation, and everyone else is thinking, how can we get out of here? So,
He looks like a character in a Priestley play or something. Anyways, it's yeah. Okay. But also, in your commentary, you talk about the colors of black and the lace and so on. Can you?
oh yeah. So what I was fascinated with was these Polaroids. Like when I was a child, that was like reality to me. That's the way adults were dressed.
Yes.
Everybody dressed like that. And then looking at them now, I look at them as like costumes. So that's what made me think of Rembrandt's time, because they wore those lace and black, and the men, even though they had white lace cuffs and black, they had that suit thing. They had a sort of a uniform, a social uniform.
Yeah.
So I was really intrigued by social uniforms as well, which is the part of this subversive series I do, where I have a painting I did of my two brothers on Santa's knee, and Santa just looks like completely dissolute. But and then I made the background kind of creepy, slightly sinister.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
So so that's why I'm enjoying those ones.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot going on. Thank you. This has been a treat. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
all your
Sherrill.
time. It's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful. Yeah, and thanks, Jody.